So Peter was a fool. I think we can all get with that. If you can't, you can come see me. I'll tell you why. Peter was a fool, and at this point in the story where Jesus is still rocking it out, there is no Paul. So maybe aside from Peter, you might know James, you might know John, but could you really name any others? Well, maybe, all right, if you think about your Bible, you got your Matthew, your Mark, your Luke, and your John. Okay, well, we said John already, and did you know that Matthew's real name wasn't Matthew, it was Levi, James. Okay, now, after you get past all of those, could you name any other disciple? Did you know about Bartholomew? Yeah, good check. All right. Yeah, okay, so maybe some of you know of them, but I know you know about Judas. Right? Everybody remembers Judas. He was a disciple. He was not only a disciple, he was the best disciple. Which might kind of, throw some of you for a loop, but without a doubt, he was the superstar. This is the guy that held the money. So he was actually considered honorable. He was the one that ran the day-to-day things. Hey, how do we get food? How do we get from place to place? We need these things. We need those things. That was Judas's job. His job was to make sure that everything went and flowed well. He was competent. He was driven. He was the leader. And we know all of this. We know that he had these talents because he was a zealot. And this doesn't just mean, he's really excited for Jesus. This is a technical term. A zealot is a militant. This is a paramilitary. He was an insurgent, okay? Right, to put it in modern terms. He was a force, literally, to be reckoned with. And so that meant that he had the ability to give orders to men, and he expected them to be followed. His goal, his understanding in the world, was to see the Roman army revolted over, to have this freedom in Israel once again. And you can tell that Judas, was a very powerful man, because when he came into the Garden of Gethsemane, and he comes walking in with these troops, Roman troops, nobody flips out. Everybody is just okay with it. They probably don't know what's going on, but they know it's Judas, and it's going to be okay. We don't need to flip out. Judas has it all under control. We know that Judas was able to do these things and convince people because Peter took some convincing. If you remember, Jesus came up to Peter and he didn't want to have anything to do with him. Peter went back to fishing. Jesus had to go and find Peter and said, hey, no, you come with me. But Judas found Jesus, I would imagine. We don't actually know, but we know because he was a zealot, he was looking for that Messiah. He was looking for the person to rally the people. He was looking for somebody. He knew his Bible, Judas did. He knew that in Judges, there was always this somebody who was coming into the world of Israel and oppressing Israel. If it wasn't one group, it was another group, so why not the Romans? And Judas would have also known that there was always somebody God was raising up, a general, a judge, this person who was going to rally Israel to overthrow all of those who would oppress all of the people of God. And so he thought, I imagine, that Judas thought he was going to be the next Gideon or the next Samson. And when he heard that there was a prophet coming in, he probably switched gears and said, okay, well, maybe I'm not Gideon or Samson, but maybe this new prophet guy is the Deborah, and I can be his Barak. I will be his man at arms, the one who goes in and leads the troops. And so I imagine he found Jesus hoping that there would be a revolt. And then we say that Judas, betrayed Jesus. But I think if you look at it from Judas's point of view, Judas would tell you that Jesus betrayed him, which is another interesting thought. They're both working for the kingdom of God. They both want God to come in and rule the world, the reign of the Lord. That's what they want. They both want it. Jesus wants it, Judas wants it, and Jesus is talking all about it. And Judas is all excited about this reign of God coming. But he wanted it his way. See, Judas has the same problem that we all have. We tell ourselves these stories. The stories of who we are, who we think we are, who we want the world to think that we are. And the story that Judas told himself was he was going to be a soldier in the army that overthrew Rome. In Judas's mind, the most powerful army of the world was going to be overthrown by God. Just like God pulled out his people, the Israelites, from the most powerful nation of the world, Egypt at the time, Judas knew that this Roman army was nothing compared to his Lord. And he was going to be the tip of the spear. And when Jesus said that the kingdom of God was coming, Judas knew that that was it, and he had to be a part of it. He was going to be Rambo. He had this story in his head about how awesome he was. And he wanted to go and be that awesomeness for God. See, Judas knew what the truth was. This people-loving, cheek-turning, friend of your enemy stuff, that's a lie. That's not truth. The truth is, Jesus was a pimp. Jesus hung around with prostitutes. Jesus was a mobster. He hung around with tax collectors. These are the men who extort money from the Israelites to pay the forces that are oppressing our people. He's an extortionist, this Jesus. He's a mobster. He's a friend of sodomites. Do you know what Greeks and Romans do? And he says, love them. No. This mamsy-pamsy Jesus guy, he doesn't have it. There are many Jews. And if Jesus would just say that we're going to overthrow the Romans, there would be even more Jews. They would find out that there's a prophet. As a zealot, there are so many who are ready to give their life. If a prophet said come, there would be even more. And if this is the Messiah, like Jesus said, there would be so many people, Rome couldn't stop it. And mamsy-pamsy, love your enemy, talking to women, Jesus doesn't hack it. No one cares what a woman has to say. This is the world that Judas found himself. He looked at Jesus and he said, that's a hypocrite. Jesus says, oh, feed the poor. But then when he goes and he hangs out with these women and they pour all the expensive nard on him, how many poor people could we really feed if he had sold that instead of had it poured on him? He's a hypocrite. He says that he's going to die, but you can't be the ruler of a kingdom if you're dead, dude. That's not how it works. You can't reign from the afterlife, which is why he killed him. He decided, or maybe he didn't know, maybe he didn't care to think about it. Maybe it was his ignorance that he only understood his world. Or maybe he was afraid. Maybe he was afraid that Jesus was a liar and that when the true Messiah came, all of the people who would have stood up against the Roman Empire would have been dead already because Jesus killed them because he really wasn't the Messiah. Or maybe he was just selfish. Maybe he didn't think Jesus was good enough. See, Judas knew that he was good enough. And he wasn't going to submit to God. He was going to dictate to God what was necessary. And what was necessary was this Jesus wussy needed to go. But I want you to follow me here, because I'm going to make a really hard, sharp turn. That was not the betrayal. The betrayal wasn't when Judas went and got some people to come and kill Jesus. That is not the betrayal. And that's kind of an interesting thing, because you may not recognize what's coming if you think that that's what the betrayal is. Judas's unfaithfulness to Jesus is horrible. Why he would go and turn in this man that he had been living with for years, this man that he loved for years, followed for years, listened to for years, and just threw him down and said, take him. That's horrible. I don't want to excuse that, but that was not the betrayal. The attack, the arrest, the torture, the death, that was not the betrayal. I think, and I'm reading in here, but I think when Judas brought those soldiers to the Garden of Gethsemane, Judas knew it was on. Everybody knew it was on. And Judas and Jesus were actually talking at a level that other disciples weren't even on. So when Jesus looks at Judas and says, go do what you must, Judas knew what he was saying. He's saying, yeah, what I must do is I'm going to get this detachment to come with me, and we're going to go find Jesus, and then Jesus is going to get all Steven Seagal on it. He's going to do that thing where he like snaps necks and, hits people with the back of his hand and whoa! And the whole attachment is just going to collapse. He's not even going to need swords because that's the Messiah. And if he doesn't do that, good, because he's not the Messiah. The betrayal. The reason Judas is a loser isn't because he brought some Romans to arrest Jesus and they did what they did to him. And afterwards, we notice that Judas repented. He really felt bad about it. He thought about it. And he thought about this man that he had loved and followed and listened to for years and served for years. And he just threw him away, and it sank his stomach. And so he went back and he tried to give him the pieces of silver. He said, I don't even want your money anymore. And they didn't care. They had gotten what they wanted. And he was so sad, he confessed. He said, look, this is not how it's supposed to go. And they said, we don't care. So he did his penance. And he confessed. But the betrayal comes. The betrayal comes when he doesn't ask for forgiveness. He never actually believed. He never believed that this was God who could take away his sin. He never believed that even those actions, even selling this man that you love so much over to the enemy, even that could be forgiven. He just didn't understand that God was that great. His God was small and lived in his mind and carried a spear and could only act this way. And that is not how God acts. God is not us. He doesn't act in our way. And he may have been sorry for everything that he had done to Jesus, and he may wish it could have gone a different way. But the biggest betrayal was the moment that he said, God can do nothing. I've done something that even God can't undo. God meant that little to Judas. He had a small God. And that's when Judas lost his way. When he could no longer have a God that could break all of his preconceived ideas, when he no longer had a God of life and death, when he no longer had a God who would actually love everyone, when his God got real small, Judas's worldview got real small, and that meant that he had only one option, which was listening to Satan, who lied to him and convinced him that his life was also worthless, just like his God. We've spent 5 weeks in Lent. And I know that some of you have really sacrificed, really fasted, taken on some things, done some things that I have found remarkable. I know that some of you have fasted food. I know that some of you have fasted fast food. Some of you haven't eaten for days, some of you. Some of you have really taken on what it means to sacrifice for God. And the reason that we're doing this is so that we can focus on who God is, which is bigger than our everyday. The reason that we do these things is so that we know that our God is bigger, because we start taking things for granted. And it's been 5 weeks, and I hope that it has been amazing, because I have seen some amazing offerings that some of you have lifted up to God. And it has encouraged me. I've told some of you, you've done things that have made me really impressed. Like, I want to do that. I wish that my faith were that strong. But we're not done. We've got 1 week left. On Thursday, we're going to celebrate the Last Supper. The meal that God gave us to show us that we are never alone, that we can be forgiven, that He is always here, ready, wanting to forgive us. And then on Friday, we're going to remember that sacrifice that He made for us, the crucifixion. I mean, I don't know what you went through for Lent, but you did not go through what Jesus went through. And on Friday, we're going to remember that. And what I want you to do, at least on Friday, is not eat. Give a meal. Give 2 meals. Give all your meals. Don't eat on Friday. If you've never done that before, I really want to encourage you from sun up to sundown, from the time you go to bed on Thursday, or better yet, from the last thing you eat, let it be communion on Thursday at the Last Supper. until the sun comes up on Saturday, don't eat. And every time you scream, why am I doing this? I want you to find one more thing to ask for forgiveness for. One more thing, because there's always something. You have a whole life of asking for forgiveness. I want you to take one day, and I want you to be relentless about asking for forgiveness. Because of all the things that we will never be, it will be the ones who betray Jesus. We will hate him. We will yell at him. We will throw him under the bus. We will send him out of our life as quickly as a blink of an eye. But the one thing that we will never be is betrayers. So I don't know if you can go an entire day, but I want to push you. I want to push you. I want to push you further than you think you can go. Because what I want you to recognize is that you are stronger than you think you are. So that on Sunday, this time next week, when we stand here and we celebrate the resurrection, I want you to have something to be celebratory about. I want you to say all of those things that you remembered on Friday, and they're gone, and you're made clean and whole because of everything that Jesus went through. And I want you to have those things on your mind so that this time next week, you can appreciate truly what Jesus gave. The Bible tells us that if we confess with our lips and believe in our heart that Jesus is Lord, then he is Lord. And I want you to be changed. I want you to be resurrected. And I want you to take this next week seriously.